What's up, guys, and welcome to the Score eSports podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Colin McNeil. In the booth with me, we got the man, the myth, the legend, Josh Burry.
Ooh, that was good. I like
Legend.
that.
Was it?
Yeah. I'm mysterious, you know.
They've told me, I heard in school the myths of Josh Burry.
Yeah, that's right. He's the myth, and then the true legend is over here, Daniel Rosen.
Hi, I don't know if I'm legendary. I've played League of Legends,
Yeah,
but I
that's
don't know if
right.
I'm one of the legends.
You know, speaking of League of Legends, that's the theme of this particular podcast. It's been the theme of quite a few lately. Before the NA LCS started, guys, as you know, if you've been listening to this podcast, we had a lot of owners on, managers, CEOs of various NA LCS teams. Now that the season is underway, now that the spring split has started, it's getting rolling, we're talking to players. We had Aframu on. We've got another player today, Hi from Golden Guardians. So Josh, without further ado, why don't we bring Hi on?
Hi, are you with us?
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
What's up, man?
How's it going?
Good. Just hanging out.
Nice.
I'm loving your carpet right now.
Oh, the Golden Gardens one? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. We got it recently.
That's a nice acquisition. They sell that at IKEA or
I think you can pick it up at your local Target.
nice Target. Unfortunately, up here in Canada, we don't have the pleasure of shopping at Target anymore.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, we'll have to make
Not worth it to live in Canada then?
Oh shit!
Yeah, clearly not. I'll make to do with defunct LCS. I think we can buy a at like Sears just closed down recently. I think you can get a Team Marn carpet there.
Oh shit!
Yeah, like really sort of we only get defunct LCS team carpets.
Well, moving off of the carpet tip.
No, oh, that was good. I actually would love an LMQ carpet. So if you got one, hit me up.
I try to move on now. I can't. I actually want a carpet that's Ole's face. Just Ole. Just him.
Kind of weird, no?
That's a little weird.
No, it's super weird. It's not even kind of weird. Like, it's very weird.
Well, also your like feet are on it and stuff.
All right, let's get to the actual
that's
question. Can we just get
disrespect.
to the question?
Okay. So the first real thing I want to say is, hi, I want to congratulate you guys in the squad on your recent win last weekend, as of recording anyway, over Team Liquid.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. It was a hard-fought win.
It was a good game, actually. I enjoyed watching it. And I wanted to jump off on that and just say, obviously, you know, Golden Guardians' record as it stands right now in the spring split is not very good at all. I think you guys are at 2-8.
Yep.
But that win over a very good, very strong-looking Team Liquid overall, did that have an effect on you guys? Did it reaffirm any kind of strats or even just mentally help keep you going?
Well, getting a win against one of the, quote-unquote top teams is very beneficial for a multitude of reasons. One, it showed when we play a standard game, which we did that game for the most part, we can win and pull out victories against the top teams. Two, it showed that our practice hasn't gone to waste, because that's something that we've been working on, that comp, playing that style and doing things like that. Kind of shows that, we can hang with the best. And if we can beat the top teams, there's no reason we aren't able to beat the teams that are lower than them. So it gave us a lot of confidence that we really needed after the rough start to the split. And hopefully going forward, that will propel us into getting more wins and maybe some miracle run into getting into playoffs.
Now, that would be quite a story. I would definitely like to see that. For your win against TL, you kind of described as like standard, but your first win, the first W in the NLCS of this season, you picked up doing some stuff that maybe wasn't so standard. You had a draft composition that included a lot of champions that we just haven't been seeing in this split, like that Alawi top lane.
Yeah.
Is that, and that was really exciting. Actually, I was like freaking out about that. Is off meta picks, is throwing people off, is that a strat you guys are running with? Is that something that you're using to your advantage being where you are in the league?
Focusing, we aren't necessarily focusing on doing, alternative or interesting picks. Rather, we're focusing on playing the meta, doing what's strong. But that doesn't mean that we don't have, our specialty picks into certain champions. And it's really just based off of what happens in practice, right? We'll play something, someone will do something to us, and we're like, oh, wow, that was really annoying. Let us try it. And then things work out. So, for example, on the Alawi, it was very prevalent in scrims throughout the NA LCS split, and we were the only one that busted it out. So I'm sure there are other people and other teams that play it. So while we were the first, I think, in LCS, doesn't mean that we'd be the last. So we definitely do have, things that we play that people haven't, but that's not something that we're focusing on. We're just doing our best to be good at what the current meta is, and that's going to be changing. So we're working on that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now again, talking about sort of where you currently stand in the LCS, is the management side of Golden Guardian, so I guess sort of the Golden State Warriors type of side, do you feel any pressure from them? Or conversely, do you feel support from them during this sort of rough start to the split?
I would say that everyone that has been working with us on the outside of the immediate roster has been very supportive of us in general, and especially with our record and our losses, they've been nothing but supportive, telling us that, it's not necessarily about the destination, but the journey and getting there. And improvement comes slowly, and they have all just been trying their best to help us out, letting us know that the wins will come. We keep putting the effort, and the victories will come. So we're just persevering, and then they're just there supporting us.
It's actually good to hear, because that's kind of the kind of stuff that Hunter told us a few months ago before the split started. But I'm wondering, this is obviously, it's about the journey, it's about this stuff. The one of the big things about having this franchise model for the league was that teams could have a little bit of a rough season, but it wouldn't be the end of the road because they wouldn't be facing relegation. But the idea is that you guys could use that and build. And I'm wondering, what are you, as the sort of like veteran on the team, as I'm kind of presuming the leader, like the leader of the as a player on the team, what are you guys looking to do to kind of build on what you've done so far?
Well, to bring up the first point about the relegation thing, teams haven't necessarily ever had the opportunity to try out, a new roster or newer players or untested players for an extended period of time due to the threat of relegation. But since that's gone, you see a lot of teams having, subs or academy teams and bringing people up, like FlyQuest brought in JJ or whatever. And now that relegation isn't there, you have the ability to try and build up a roster from the ground up. And basically, for us, that just means we have 5 good group of guys that all know how to play the game, and we're working on how to learn to play the game together. So there's definitely improvement that can be had between our team. People can make an argument that the ceiling isn't as high as other teams, but that's up for us to decide rather than them. And I believe that if we put in enough effort and time and practice the right way, like we are, I think that will lead to having good results down the road. As far as being like a world championship team, I'm not sure, but at the current moment, there's not a single NA team that is one. So we're all struggling to work our own way towards that. And the method that we're choosing, I think, can bring out good results a few months down from now.
Hi, I want to ask if the lack of relegation has changed the way that you personally think about losing. Like, is it fair to say that since this isn't a situation where this organization would be maybe saying like, hey, let's try and bring in some people, let's do anything so we're not in that promotion tournament, that it's changed the way that you feel about losing or the way that you think about losing in the grand scheme of this entire season?
Right. I would say it's definitely changed. You can look at the past where, relegation was looming over our head, and that's honestly pretty fucking terrifying. You can look at Team Liquid, they bought Doublelift or something for a month to save them from relegations, and it's just back in the day, relegation is almost like a death sentence to your LCS team unless you had like huge members on it or like other esport teams. But a lot of the other ones that got relegated before, Velocity, NME, all the other ones, they're kind of all dead as far as the league scene goes. And having that threat over you is kind of like almost career ending in a way. And it was just so much pressure back in the day to play in that setting and environment. You didn't really want to make mistakes. You didn't really want to go super hard because you didn't want to be the reason why your organization got kicked out of the LCS. But now with that being gone, it's a lot of pressure relief and allows us to play more freely to the way that we should be, the standards of what should be an LCS team. And just not having that threat relegation will help teams play better. in my opinion.
That's really good to hear, actually, because that of course is the stated point of this sort of no relegation system that we have. I wanted to ask sort of a similar question regarding another change, or rather going back to an old state, which is best of ones. So when I think of best of ones, I sort of assume like, oh, these players are going to want to play safe. They're going to be afraid to do something wacky. But we were talking to Smithy last week, and he actually told us it's sometimes the opposite. He feels a little bit more free. How do best of ones affect your game plan or your mentality when you go into a match?
I personally find best of ones to either, like you said, some people will play aggressive or some people will play passive. I think that's more on the person rather than the system. The best of three people would still play passive or aggressive because they don't want to be the reason why they lost. Say you're down 0-1, that game, they're going to be the same thing, right? So maybe there's a game where they'll try something more interesting or aggressive, but then get punished for it and fall out. But for a best of one, I think people just kind of understand, it's one game, give it what you got, and then see how it goes. Now, some people will, play passive, but if they're those kind of people, they probably play it the same way in a different system, generally speaking. But I think most players try their best to treat the best of one or best of three the same, whereas they try to take it one game at a time, and every game is important to give your best at it.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, kind of talking about this and going, changes and game plans going into games. I'm wondering, you were a little bit coy about this when somebody asked you, and I think it was overly asked you on the Riot broadcast. But I'm wondering, what is shot calling like for you on this team? If I'm not 100% sure that you are the primary shot caller, but I'm assuming you are. Is that like something that you had to kind of work on again with this team?
Right. As far as like shot calling on the team, we've been working on, having specific roles or specific um, conversations the game being delegated to certain people. Say, it's early game, we got the first blood tower bottom. It's not really my responsibility to shot call the rest of the team to what lane they want to go to. That's more on the bottom lane and then top lane to try and figure it out. I can help facilitate the discussion. I'll ask them a question like, hey, you guys just got the turret. What lane do you guys want to go to? Think about it, talk about it, etc. But for, specific things like that, all the players, do their best to make their own decisions on that. And as the game goes farther on, say it's like 25, 35 minutes into the game, it'll start becoming more of me talking, but everyone is still putting their input into things, whether like it's Sam saying, hey, I can do TP flank here. Hey, can you push out so I can flank here or something? But in general, the later the game goes, the more I'm probably talking as the game goes on.
It's interesting then that you say that you're kind of, it's funny just because you have this rep for being that kind of micromanaging guy, but it feels like that's fading a little bit as more players get to come into the conversation. That's just cool to hear.
Mm-hmm. That's the game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Now I wanted to ask Kai, Golden Guardians recently, you sort of abruptly lost your coach Locodoco, obviously in a whole series of events that were not planned. I wanted to ask if you can speak on that, if there's anything that you can tell us about that, and B, how that has affected the team. I know you have an interim coach, but I'm wondering if any responsibilities have fallen to you, being the veteran or a veteran on the squad.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't say any comment as far as it goes to the release of Locodoco. As far as everything that happened after, I can comment on. Our interim coach, Tyler Perrin, he used to be Contracts' and I's positional coach before the change. And I really like working with him, honestly. He's actually really smart, one of the best positional coaches I've had. And I think he's been doing a very great job of spearheading the duties that a head coach requires, because it's a lot of work to go from a positional coach to a head coach, and that's a lot of stress and weight on his shoulders that he wasn't prepared for coming into the organization. And he's doing a very good job at handling all of that, actually, and I'm very happy with the results and the way he's trying to run the team. As far as having more responsibilities onto my shoulders, since we have a newer coach that isn't as um, bold as local, I would say. there's a bit more pressure for me to just try and keep the team level-headed, keep their morale strong, try and keep our mentality strong throughout practice, throughout LCS, and just kind of being, a good leader or role model to the team, someone that they can like look to if they're like losing and be like, okay, he's still doing okay, he still believes we can win. We can still win, kind of deal.
Right, I got you. Almost like a like an emotional or like a moral support kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just making sure that, everyone's on the same page and everyone's still, confident that we can still get the victory and playing their best.
Totally makes sense. Now, I know Daniel Rosen here is chomping at the bit to ask some historically pointed questions. So I want to get in our time machine here a little bit.
Yeah, if you don't mind me, I think Matt may have mentioned to you, just jumping a little bit back, we're working sort of a profile of your career, and I just have basically want to clear some stuff up that I was like reading and I found really interesting. And one of the ones I was reading that I think it was the feature that your brother wrote for LoL eSports, that at one point you were considering dropping out of school to go pro. I think before the second qualifier, the time you guys actually qualified with Quantic/Cloud9. This was like super early on when that was like a huge risk because LCS was unproven and stuff. I'm wondering, one, I guess, did you end up dropping out because that kind of left it up in the air? And two, what was it about playing League Pro that made you want to do that?
Okay, so I believe I was in my sophomore year of college, the fall semester, when Riot released information about the NALCS, somewhere around there, or even like the summer before that. But I remember seeing some headline on the League of Legends client saying $2 million tournament for playing League of Legends, and then at the time I was like top 50 ranked in the solo queue ladder. I'm like, hey, I like money. I'm pretty good at this game, so that's where that led my interest into playing for the LCS at the time, and led us to the first qualifier. We lost that qualifier, and that sucked. And during that time, I took the semester off of school, the fall semester of junior year. I deferred to try and qualify, and that's when I failed. Following that failure, it was too late to sign up for the spring semester of classes. I couldn't sign up for any classes as they're all closed now, and I was kind of in a limbo of what to do because there's no school that I could attend at the moment. And then Riot released information about how they were going to have another qualifier coming in May to try and get new teams in, and it aligned perfectly basically. Since I couldn't attend school, I had one more shot to try and qualify, and I told myself if I didn't make it to that one, I would just attend school again in that summer/fall, so that I could just finish college, since I was only about a year and a half until I was about to be done. So I pretty much just said, if I don't qualify, I'll go back to school, and if I do, then we'll see where it takes me, and that's where I am now.
All right, interesting, cool. Something that I want to talk about too is like that team that you guys built to qualify. And you guys lost Turtle to TSM. You brought on Sneaky, who I think you guys beat when he was playing for Pulse. I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about what your first impression of Sneaky was.
My first impression of Sneaky. He is a lot different than he is now. He still shares the same characteristics of kind of being like Mimi/Trolly, but back in the day, I think he was a lot more reserved and a lot more quiet. Whether that came through on streams, team interactions, in person, or anything, he was a lot more reserved and just quiet back in the day. But you can look at him now, and he's very confident, very bold in team discussions with the team. He's very vocal on stream. He's very himself, and that perpetuates throughout the entirety of who he is now. And while that was there in the past, it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. And I would say I've I've always had a very good impression and fondness towards him, because he is a very nice guy all the way down throughout his core. He's someone that you can trust, whether that be, like you telling him something and him not going to tell others. As far as him like driving me or something, probably not. But as far as like being a good friend that isn't going to betray you or someone that you can trust, I definitely think he's someone that is like that because I've never felt any malice from him or ulterior motives or anything like that. He's just very hard on his sleeve, genuinely very nice guy, and I really appreciate that from him.
Do you can you just as a quick jump on that? Can you speak a little bit like why do you think Sneaky has stayed so consistent for so long? Because like he's one of those dudes who's been top 2, top 3 AD in North America pretty much forever.
hmm I would say it's due to the amount that he practices. So his persona is a bit trolling a little bit, but as a player, he's very serious when it comes to the game. He'll put in the time required to, improve on himself and play and discuss with his teammates on like, how to get better as a team, how they should be playing. And you can just count his amount of games every year and it's generally really high for an LCS player. So he puts a lot of effort into playing and he's honestly just good. There's nothing you can say about it really. He's a good player and he's a good person and he tries hard to be both. And it shows through the results of his team and his play.
All right, cool. Jumping way forward, I want to talk a little bit about, obviously, when you retired, you cited wrist injury. Obviously, you're still playing. Can you talk a little bit what happened with that? Like, does that still affect you at all? Did you find a way to kind of move past it? What happened there?
Right. At that time, that split, I was struggling with a lot of wrist and forearm pain. And I went to a lot of PT to help alleviate that. I went like 3, 4 times a week, and they taught me a bit about how to help exercise and stretch my wrist and take care of it more. And then I stopped playing for about 2 months when I retired. I didn't really do that much. I did some streaming of ranked fives and stuff like that, but I didn't spend, you know, 12, 14 hours playing on the computer as I had been. And taking that time off and doing my stretches and exercising during that time really helped alleviate a lot of the pain that I had because I think the difference of what happened with me and others is that the moment I started feeling any pain or struggles with my wrist, I took immediate action to try and help alleviate it and fix it. So now I don't necessarily I'm not perfect obviously nowadays, but the amount of pain or discomfort I feel in my wrist and forearms compared to 2 years ago is a lot different and it's not nearly the same. So it's much more manageable. It's not something I really notice that much anymore. I just wear my wrist braces when I play. I do my stretches daily, and it's not. I don't feel as if it's going to be something that will be detrimental to me years down the road. Whereas people that are still playing with the carpal tunnel that might mess with them years down the road. But for me, I think I'm okay.
All right, that's good to hear. Something else I want to ask about. I was reading that profile that your brother did. I was listening to some interviews that you did kind of about that time, and a lot of them mentioned that you came off a little bit either depressive or just not super enthused when you were in that retirement period. I'm wondering what was retirement like for you?
I would say I don't know very many people in the world that are happy with being forced to retire from an injury, where they still have the drive and the fire to keep competing. Getting a retirement sent to you due to not being able to play is depressing in the sense that you're still good enough to play, you still want to play, people still want to play with you, but there are issues outside of your, you know, out of your command, I guess, that is stopping you from doing it. That just sucks to not be able to do what you love to do and are able to do because of something outside of the game. And that's why that was depressing for me. And I took it a bit hard in the beginning. It was very sad, but there's not much point in life to try and dwell on the things that have happened. My wrists were injured at the time. There's nothing I can do. Well, there's nothing I can do about it being her at the time. The only thing I can do is move forward and do my best to try and fix those issues and move on. So I got over it pretty quickly, I would say, but at the time it was pretty sad. Yeah.
That makes it sort of sound like, and I'm not sure here, but that makes it sound like, I guess, who made the call for you to come back and come in and save C9? Was that like you called Jack and like, hey, I need to do this, or did somebody call you? Like, who made that decision? I guess.
Well, during that LCS season where I wasn't playing, they weren't doing too well. I think they were like 2-6 or 2-8 or something like that when Jack messaged me. He didn't message me to ask me to sub in or to play or anything like that. He just wanted me to look over the scrims and watch their gameplay because he said they were having issues with communication and, things like that. And that was my forte. So I was watching the scrim and I just remember watching them play, and it just seemed like it was the first game of the day, and in the very first game they were all tilted already. I can understand them being tilted after a game or two if it's just been them getting stomped, but you really shouldn't be tilted in the very first game of the day when nothing has happened yet. And I could tell that they were tilted because there wasn't very much communication happening between any of the players. They're kind of all just playing, and then at that point it's more like solo queue than it is practice or a LCS match. And I brought up to them after the game like, hey, I don't know what's happening with you guys' environment, but it seems like you guys are all tilted. No one's taking the time to communicate with each other, and you guys just feel like solo queue players. And Medios wasn't feeling well at the time, I guess. So he asked if he could step down for one game, and Jack was like, I know you haven't played jungle. I know you haven't played in a while, but if you're interested, we'd really appreciate if you sub in one game for Meteos while he like, rests up a bit because he's sick, or whatever. And I was still loyal to the brand. I was still loyal to C9. Jack helped me get where I was, and I've told him before that if he ever needed me to help him out again, that I would. So I went into the scrim not expecting anything. I was jungling for the first time in 2 years professionally or something like that, and I didn't even play jungle in solo queue, so it's honestly pretty troll that I subbed in for Meteos. But the game that I subbed in, for some reason, everyone on the team was being more communicative. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that um, euphoric feeling or happy. What's the happy phase after you start dating someone? The happy moon?
I think it's like euphoria.
Oh, honeymoon
Oh,
phase.
Honeymoon.
Phase. That's
Yeah,
it.
the honeymoon phase. That's a phase that almost every team goes through when they get a new player. And I guess that's what we were going through, even though I was a player before. But I don't know, people just like felt a new vibe or a new environment. And everyone just started talking more in the scrim. They were being more communicative. And immediately the entire game changed. We won that scrim and the next scrim. And then Meteos was watching and he was listening to the comms. He's like, let's give High some more time to play. Seems like he's doing really well with the team. I think he might be a better fit for them than I will be. And we just went forward with that. And yeah, that's how that happened.
Yeah, and the rest is history, as it were. One last historical question before we jump back to the present. I want to ask, that coming back like that was sort of what led you here to Golden Guardians eventually down the road, 2 years later or whatever. But when you requalified for the LCS, you did an interview where you said you weren't interested in playing in the LCS again. Balls and Lemon, they were thinking about it, but you weren't feeling that way. What changed? Because obviously you're still here, right?
Right. I would say in that interview when I was talking, I think I might have said that I wasn't interested in playing, and that is true to an extent. It's more about who I was going to play for and who with. If there was a good group of team or a good group of players and an organization that I felt as if I could believe in, I could definitely see myself playing. But at the time, I couldn't see myself necessarily leaving Cloud9 at the time. And after qualifying, Jack came to me and told me I had this opportunity to help build a new organization, which is now FlyQuest. And it sounded really exciting for me to try and do what Jack and I and the rest of the Cloud9 members did with Cloud9. They are extremely successful now. They're the top team for 2 years or something like that. And having that opportunity to try and go through that again sounded very exciting and challenging for me. So I went with it, and that's why I wanted to play again.
All right, and yeah, and then I guess that leaves you here, and I guess it's interesting that you you like you said, you left to help build FlyQuest. Now you're here. I think Colin, you look like you had something to say about that.
Well, I just wanted to. We're running down the clock here, but I wanted to squeeze in one last one about that org building sort of mentality.
We have about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, great,
cool. Well,
great.
then Colin's got plenty of stuff.
Yeah, my clock's obviously running fast. I was just wondering. So obviously you're at a completely new org for League of Legends. You're only halfway through their very first split. What is the building going on there? Like, how are you? Obviously, you're a player, you're a veteran presence on the actual squad. Your job is to win games. But beyond that, how are you helping to build this organizations and endear it to League of Legends fans who are not familiar with the Golden Guardians?
I would say, being with the Golden Guardians, I am not as much, not vested, but part of the organizational decisions that they're making, whether that be, with like jerseys or merchandising or things like that, all that kind of stuff. I'm not as heavily involved with that as I was in the past. And I like it this way, kind of, because I can focus more on everything that goes with the roster, the team, my play, and our team's play. And obviously, I'm here because I trust them to make the correct decisions when it comes to, merchandising, branding, fan content, growth, and all that. And I would say they're doing a great job.
So I want to ask you actually about fan content. When before the NA LCS started, we talked to a lot of sort of like managerial CEO type people of different NA LCS teams, including someone from the Gold Guardians. And something I heard a lot was I would ask, how do you win fans? You're new to the league in most cases. So how do you win fans? And the answer would be like, oh, we win. Well, we'll win the league. And I just kept coming back to, well, not everyone wins, right? It's a matter of math, right? There's literally X spots at the top.
Right. Someone has to lose.
Someone has to lose. Even if it's only temporary, even if it's different next split, someone has to lose. So what is it beyond results, beyond the L and the W column, that you think that you can make fans out of, that you can see more jerseys in the crowd?
Right. I think, first off, the easiest way to gain fans is to win. That's just the easiest way. But there are a lot of other avenues that you can follow to try and gain fandom or to gain more fans. You can do things such as, like giveaways, fan events, fan meetings, things like that. But I would just say it's really dependent on the players. The organization can only do so much to help promote the players if they don't want to do it themselves. So you can have a player, that has no interest in being famous, has no interest in gaining fans, and there's really not much that an organization can do about that, right? They can do their best to try and make him be more willing to do that, but at the end of the day, if someone doesn't want fandoms or fans, they're not really gonna really get there, I guess. So it's a lot on the player to market themselves, to stream, to be active on Twitter, to be active on Instagram, whatever social avenues that they have, and to make a presence or a name for themselves, to build a brand or personality. And when players have those brands or personalities, it makes it a lot easier for the organizations to build content off of them, to help promote them, to help grow them. It's more of a symbiotic relationship more than, one person does it all. And it's just that a lot of players don't have that much interest or put in that much effort to try and grow themselves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with a lot of those points, and it makes me wonder, it makes me think, like, a player who is willing or interested in doing self-promotion and self-brand building, is it increasingly becoming the case that they are much more attractive for an org to sign, sort of almost regardless of their other factors, their sort of actual in-game factors?
I would argue a player that has a big presence is more lucrative than a player that doesn't have a big presence. Now, there are some players that just have both. Like Bjergsen, he has like 1.4 billion Twitter followers and like million Facebook or some insane number like that, and he's a great player. So with him, you get both. You get the giant social media presence where he can help build your organization. He can help get sponsors just due to the fact of his sheer social media presence, and he's a great player. But then the flip side of things, you can have players that, you know, have a much smaller social media following. Say one of the import players like Ryu or Phoenix or something like that. While they're amazing players in their own right in the game, their social media presence is very small, and their marketability is really small as well. And that is not necessarily attractive for sponsors like, you know, Adidas or Nike or something like that. Yes, they like going to the top players, but at the same time, they want them to have a big personality, because that's a win-win in both regards, you know. So people that have a strong social media presence, that should help them, you know, be more lucrative to teams. But at the same time, you can't just have like a million Twitter followers and be silver in league and expect to get on a team, right?
Yeah.
So
Damn
there's
it.
like a balance in both things.
Wait, I don't even think you're
There-
silver, Colin.
There
so
goes
I
all my
don't-
hope.
I don't know if that was your bank.
I mean,
account.
not in league, maybe in CS. You know, maybe I could sign to a CS team.
Hi, I had one last question for you before we let you go. And you mentioned this, and I'm working on something that actually is not directly related to you, but you hit on something I think is really important, and that is the balance between competitive play and content creation. And I wanted to ask you, as an LCS player for an organization that's trying to build your brand, how do you balance those two things? Is there a clear, like, I have to do this amount of content creation, the rest is scrims, the rest is practice, replays, all that stuff? How do you balance those two things? And is there ever a time in your career where you felt like, damn, I need to do less content creation, man. I need to focus on me, like my play?
hmm I would say that first off, a lot of players and fans and people in general have they don't necessarily think about the future of the player, whether that be in the sense of like what they're going to do a year from now, what team are they going to play for, more than what are they going to do 10 years down the line from now, right? So for me personally, I've always been someone that tries to keep in mind what I'm going to be doing 5, 10 years down the line. And I know for a fact I cannot be a professional League of Legends player for, you know, an extended period of time, whether that be 5 or a decade. I'm not sure. Obviously, I'll go for as long as I can, but I want to be able to make a self-sustaining career for after I play as well. And having a bigger social media presence or networking more will help get to that. So when I first retired, I had a lot of options of what I could do. You know, whether that be go work for a organization, a peripheral brand company, doing a new company with other people. I networked a lot as my time as a player, and that helped open a lot of doors for me, so that I could continue after. And building your brand and having content creation and things like that will help secure a stable future for you down the road. And you need to be able to balance that with your professional playing, because no matter how much the fans demand you to try and get first place or to be a world championship, you need to think about your own life and your own future. So put in all your effort into winning, but you also have to put in effort into securing a future for yourself. If you think about that kind of stuff, at least some people won't, and that's fine. But for me, I'm 25, and that's something I need to think about. So I do my best to try and put as much effort as I can into playing while focusing on my own future. And I would say it never becomes a point where I focus on fan creation or content creation over playing. Playing is always first, but that doesn't mean there's a 0% effort put into what I'm going to be doing after this, because that is important, and I need to make sure that I have some kind of pathway that I can follow for my career, since no LCS player can play forever, and I'm sure we all want to have a job for after we're done playing, since we don't have college degrees.
Well, that sounds like a delicate balance for sure, but both things obviously important. Thanks for your words on that. High.
I just want to say preach. When he was saying that, I just wanted to throw my hands up. I didn't want to interrupt him. Hi, I know you have to take off soon, so I just wanted to give you one last opportunity to say anything, touch on any topics that we never asked about, or just give some shout outs and say what's up to the fans.
The only thing I'd say is thanks for taking the time to do the interview. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of the morning to talk to me about everything that we talked about. And I hope that you guys have a great day. And I appreciate having your time. Thank you.
Well, it's been a great day since you took the time to talk to us. So
Yeah.
we really thank you for that. We really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
All right.
Take care. Hi.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right.
Bye.
Good
Later,
luck
guys.
this weekend.
Yeah, good luck.
Appreciate it. Bye bye.
All right. Wow.
Okay, guys. So when can I get the Ole rug?
That's not gonna
When
happen.
can
Let's
I do
call
it?
back. Let's get Steve back on the podcast, and then you can ask him about it.
Steve sent me a Christmas card.
He sent me a Christmas card.
Literally.
Whoa,
Steve
what?
sent both of us a Christmas card.
I didn't
So,
get a Christmas
you didn't get a
card at
Christmas
all.
card.
I was like, yo, I'm not.
To be fair, it was Steve and Victor.
I'm not even. That's true. It's true. I've never corresponded with Victor personally, but
think I
he was
emailed
on
him
the
once.
card.
Yo, that's like not even cool though, because I did a whole video about paid by Steve, and
that
I didn't even
was-
get a card. I didn't even get paid by Steve in Christmas cards.
I mean, the card was nice. It was fine. I think Colin has it framed over his mantle.
This is real. My girlfriend actually tried to take it down. I was like, "What are you doing?" That's my. She's like, "It's February." I'm like, "It's my eSports Christmas."
I'm
card."
really sorry to Steve, but I'm not actually sure where mine is right now. I think it might be like somewhere next to my TV.
How dare
That's
you?
fair.
How dare you reject the gifts?
I didn't reject it. I had it out for a little bit with the rest of the like 3 Christmas. I'm Jewish. I don't get a lot of Christmas cards. It felt very special.
That's true. That's true.
Anyway, back to what we actually talked about.
I like how we say goodbye to High and we're like, "Yeah, Team Liquid."
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought that High interview was really good. I think he really, I mean, for a dude who's been around this long, obviously he's super thoughtful about most of this stuff. But I think he's really, it's so interesting his perspective on some of these things, right? Like
Yes.
even a lot of questions that we asked, like similar questions to Aframu, who's also a veteran, but High kind of has this unique perspective on these things as a dude who did step away for a time, as a dude who is coming at it from being this like, you know, he branded himself very effectively early on. He was brash, he was big, he's a guy with a personality, and it's interesting to, you know, see all the thought that goes behind that too.
You know, I love a guy with a personality,
Yeah.
and I double love a guy who understands the value of marketing himself in the bigger picture.
Yep.
Also,
I think he's the first person to say shout outs to us for taking the time. Really, really nice, very pleasant. So
Yeah,
he's,
I know,
he's not the
that's-
first person to say something along those lines, but the way he said it was extremely polite.
yeah, very, very, very sweet of him, very kind of him.
It
If he
brings
ever
me
listens-
back to the Lost podcast of Red Eye.
Oh yeah, the lost
who
episode.
was very kind to us and complimented our journalistic abilities. And then, of course, the audio got deleted.
That's
so-
my fault.
No, it's not. It's
It's-
no one's fault.
It's somebody's fault, and it may or may not be mine.
Well, anyways, I take responsibility because that's the life that I gotta lead. What was that?
I was just staring right at the camera.
Oh.
I was doing like the Jim thing from The Office or Kermit.
Oh,
You know,
and,
Kermit.
and unfortunately, when you decided to do it, I had like a slight blip in the production. I couldn't cut away from it.
Yeah, impossible.
It's almost like
Holy
you
shit.
transfixed the webcam.
yeah, it's strange, right? I think I'm actually an 8th Gorgon on my mom's side.
good God. Okay, we're now
I'm
getting
sorry,
into
Mom.
Greek mythology, so it's time to wrap for sure. I I really did enjoy that podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Everybody watching. Let's hope for Golden Guardians 2-0 this weekend. First 2-0 for them. Let's hope for that. Okay.
It'd be cool to watch. I think they play Optic and somebody else.
Optic is beatable.
Listen, I drafted contracts.
I mean, hey, yo, Hex, don't fucking at me, but Optic's hella beatable. So
I mean, yeah, they're not invincible. They're
Lemon
certainly
Nation
not
is
invincible.
totally gonna like trash.
Oh yeah, High versus Lemon. That's a fun match.
Yep, sure.
I drafted contracts in Fantasy LCS. So far, that move has not paid off, but
I-
I would love if it started.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That would be.
I don't think I have any Golden Guardians on my LCS.
There
but
is a ton of promise on that roster.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
all that we like, for all that they looked a little bit rough early on, there is a lot of promise on that roster. Contract is a great player. I think definitely needs some more time to shine. Obviously, High has proven that he is a solid player. Lorlo and Matt are both solid players. Like, there's a lot of potential to do great things on that team, as we saw when they beat Liquid.
honestly, they honestly look good. I know Liquid made some errors, but like they legit beat Liquid. Liquid did not throw that match.
Yeah,
In
that was a real match. It was, and hopefully they can really turn that on again and bring some real competition to the LCS.
Well, we'll have to
I'm
see.
a Lorlo fan. You
Yeah.
guys know.
Yeah, I
Samson
know.
Jackson, the greatest
What a
name in the
great
LCS.
name.
The greatest name in the LCS.
Jesus.
And on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye. For Josh Burry, for Daniel Rosen, this has been Colin McNeil for the Score Esports podcast saying until next time, GG. It's time to make building your champions easier. Introducing the Score Esports new builds calculator, which allows you to plug in items and runes to figure out which builds give you the best stats. The new builds page also gathers information on what the top players and your favorite pros are building, so you'll be able to try them out yourself. Take control of your champion and try out the new feature on the Score Esports Builds website by clicking on the link in the description below.